Writing from the soul is the mother of all invention, and 21 Grams is back for another season of this exploration. We will look into the artist and the art they create. Except, this season we're adding the questionnaire, invented by the great Bernard Pivot, to go even deeper. They say 21 grams is the weight of the soul, and this show is the scale. So now here's your host for 21 grams, Joe Compton. Hello everybody and welcome to 21 grams. I am here with the awesome Tim Niederriter. Hi Tim. Uh-oh, is
Hi.
Tim frozen?
Good to be back.
Nice to see you. I think you're a little delayed. There might be a little bit of a freeze there. Hang on for a second.
I'm trying.
No worries. All right, and Anita's here. Hello, Anita. All right, so I think you're back. I can see you moving, so I think we're good. All right. All right. I've talked to you so many times, Tim. The interesting thing to me that I wanted to kind of go into with you, I see you have a new series, the Iron Dragon series, and I'm curious about, you know, the process of writing a series for you. We've talked about it before. You kind of develop them ahead of time, but you're into so many series now. So has that process evolved since the last time we spoke? Are you feeling like there's a different way that you go about writing a series?
Well, this one was definitely more of a seat of the pants, high concept kind of like collision of two concepts I really like from other media. So this was kind of an unusual one for me because it was a direct, takeoff of a video game series that I'm kind of a fan of the story of, though I've never actually finished one of the games. Long story short, there, the Metal Gear Solid stuff. Metal Gear Solid. Anybody who's played those games, covers are influenced heavily by that. And so was the title originally. So, but then of course there's the high fantasy element because Metal Gear is a series of espionage and stealth action games, right? And they're about, and they're science fiction. They're set in the modern, so it's like first world, and they have a mech that shoots nuclear missiles. Okay, that's about the bones of Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear is a mech that shoots nuclear missiles. Okay, that's what it's for ICBMs. But I replaced that with a dragon. That's what I did. It's an arms race involving dragons and spies and stuff. So drill in there, but concepts.
How many books are you planning in this series?
As far as go on. Sorry.
How many books are you planning in this series?
I have way too many in mind. It should be a long runner. I'm thinking 10 to 15. And hopefully I'll be able to stick with it because I'm so bad at sticking with series at this point. I want to deliver they're short books too. These are like novella-length books. But I want little stories in this setting with these characters.
What is your favorite thing about dragons? What is it about dragons that intrigues you so much?
Well, in the past, this is actually my first series that I think has really involved in dragons. But they're kind of, they've always been a favorite. My favorite book when I was a kid, that kind of thing. It was like, I've always liked dragons, but then there's because dragons appear in all sorts of cultures, and this was more. In fact, the dragons in the Iron Dragon series are more influenced by the Asiatic style dragon, the Chinese style dragon, Japanese dragon, right? I mean, you could say the Japanese probably a knockoff, but whatever, of the Chinese dragon. But in some ways or other, depending on who you are, right? One is a knockoff of the other, perhaps. But the difference, the kind of dragon as a part of the divine uh, court, the realm of the gods or whatever, is where I was rolling with in this particular example, and I do like that. And I have my own analogy here. But there's an element of that influence there. So even though the dragons might be sometimes more European style in how they look, and maybe even how they behave, they're definitely, influenced by that being from a higher realm, as well as being a monster. I enjoy that.
It's interesting to me because you're somebody who explores a lot of your fandoms through your writing. You like and you go through all kinds of different settings, different types of fantasy. You've done high, you've done epic, you've done dark. For you, is that what drives you? Is it something that influences you that you love that you want to kind of convey that love through your own interpretation of writing?
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty accurate assessment. I mean, there's I'm very uncomfortable with the concept of fandom, at least
Mm,
as a like I worship these creators. I like to see fandom more of the way I see my fandom is more of this is the lineage of creatives that I belong to.
mm,
So, I take a lot from I mean, the more ones, I mean, you get to Neil Gaiman, maybe, but definitely Stephen Brust. Jeez, I can never say his name. And he's the guy from my state. Come on, I should know better. But Stephen Brust, and then you Zelazny and Moorcock and all these other people who did, kind of darker, weirder fantasy than their contemporaries.
mm,
And especially, I think Zelazny is one that hit me as somebody I want to pay homage to. And he wrote all kinds of stories. These people back then were Michael Moorcock, Elric, but also he's got a ton of other stuff. These time travel books, like Man, and it's very strange. There's so many. These got a white lots of, so I'm kind of trying to work a compromise between doing things I like to be all sorts of stuff, right?
mhm.
Because like you get the like with one of my earlier series, the Mangrove Suite series. So the Mangrove Suite, that's like I kind of saw that as science fiction. Same with Origin of Storms. But then people are always telling me it's fantasy. So I decided I'm going to embrace that. I'm going to go fantasy just for the branding and compromise on that whole thing. And that's why I explore fantasy right now because it's fantasy anyway. So I figure why mess with the brand in that way? And I know brand it's kind of iffy to say that as a creator, but for me to write fantasy, it's really my first love anyway. And I like to explore all sorts of it, obviously.
I think you do. I do think branding is important, and I think you do exhibit it quite well because you're somebody who you on the covers of all your books you can see there's a story being told there, right? There's an interesting intrigue to it, and especially with the newer ones, the dragons being on the cover, and then you have a different character on the cover of each of the two sets. And then the demon ones, of course, are all put together. The Hunter series is all kind of, it matches kind of each other and mirrors each other. Is that something you think about right away? Is that something you think about after the fact? How much of that is inherent in how you present everything? Are you somebody who does that at the beginning, or is that something that you do after you've figured out what you're going to write?
Well, I kind of figure out the basic idea, right? Actually, the Iron Dragon started with book covers. So I made the book
Mm,
covers first as practice. And I said, those books look
nice.
cool. Let's write. So, like, what if I was going to make this as a series? And then I said, that should be my next project. And that's why there's going to be at least actually more like 15 to 20 of these because I made a lot of book covers that I want people to see. Um, once or not, I mean, that's a different question, right?
Yeah.
I'm not known for sticking with a series very long. And this has been so slow to write these little books right now because I've been relearning the process over the last year. Now that I have a job that I work in the mornings and stuff, I mean, that's when I used to write was like 4 a.m., 5 a.m.
Mm.
And now, well, I'm not writing at that time. Let's just put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think your job would
I
frown
do what
upon
I
that if you
can
were writing.
to keep up, but yeah. Well, I also couldn't. I guess I could, but it'd be hard to do because of people. I'm working. I did consider that for a while.
Mm.
That would be weird, puffing and puffing going on. Anyway, I mean, people guess what in her shows more recently. It's okay. I don't have to go into that.
Yeah, that's fine.
But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I definitely like covers first though. That's the thing. Lately, I make the covers first, and I make a big set of them, which is why they're not kind of individual projects. I see the series as kind of one project.
do you develop like a marketing plan for this, or is it kind of just seat of your pants of in that aspect as well?
Yeah, I wish I did. I wish I developed a marketing plan. I mean, the Underdurance kind of switched plans a lot because originally I was going to launch it into Kindle Unlimited, and I did that. And then I decided I'm okay, forget that. I want the first book to be permanently free. We're going to go wide with everything. I changed the marketing earlier this year. So everything's now, I think maybe one of my series might still be, but I forget which one. See, if I knew, I would fix it. I just have too many books now.
You're,
And so the Iron Dragon one is free, just so people know. They can check that out,
nice.
and basically wherever fine ebooks are found for free. So I'd encourage that.
You're someone who's had success on Vela too. Being that this is a smaller written series that has smaller word count, did you consider that as because that's an easy way to get a lot of content out fast, right? So did you consider that at all for this series, or was this
Well,
always going to be a book series?
it was going to be a book series pretty much from the get go because Vela, it was kind of like my way out of Vela, if you can believe that, because Vela has fallen off a little bit for me as far as the earnings, because you need a lot of content to make Vela work reliably. At least you did when I was really doing it. I haven't done Vela in a year and a half, I think, in the series way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe less than that. It's been less than that, but still, like Kindle Vela to me is kind of, I don't know how much longer it'll even be around. I don't know how many is successful to the degree that I wanted to be with it. So I kind of threw it on decided to go back to what I love, which is writing, books, even if they're short.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine you're kind of glad about that aspect of it, not having to worry about the Vela aspect of it then.
Absolutely. And publishing stories on Vela is a little bit, because I like serializing stories. I do, but I want to serialize bigger chunks. That's what it can be. So I can write a half a novel or a novella that tells a whole complete story, but is about the length of half a novel for a lot of other people. And that's maybe the length I want to work in. Or like, honestly, even Degrees of Static, book 2 is a very short book. It's only like 110 pages at most. Very short. Because maybe it's because I didn't plan well enough for what I wanted that story. The story was like, oh, I guess it's done. I set it up. I knocked it down a little earlier than expected. But it was still, I still think it's a really good book. It's just very concise.
Mm-hmm.
But even that, I wouldn't want to break that up into chapter by chapter, because when you're on Vela, you publish, at least the publishing schedule on Vela is also really crazy. So that's the other issue with it. I was trying to for a day for a while there.
Wow, that's a lot.
It was stressful. It was stressful, and it was also kind of necessary to make any impact. Those are people of hats off to them. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. I so going back to series, and reinventing yourself in a lot of respects. The interesting thing I find for a lot of fantasy authors is they tend to romanticize the idea of the next medium forward, right? Like so audiobooks or hardcovers or so. But you've always kind of stuck to the ebook format in a lot of ways. I mean, you do have paperbacks available and things of that nature, but
Mhm.
is there just a comfort level with ebook? Is that a format that you enjoy as a reader personally?
Yeah, yeah, it's how I read all my books now. I don't like audiobooks that much personally. I just I just can't really listen to most audiobooks. I don't know why, but I like podcasts still. I don't like
Mhm.
audiobooks for some reason. It's just a matter of listening to a story and not really having a stopping point. It just keeps going if I don't hit offer. And then as for, I mean, and also audiobooks are expensive, and I just not really felt like I understand the market enough to invest in that for the most. I tried it with one book and didn't work out super well, so I'm like, I'd better be ready next time, and I'm still not ready. As far as other mediums, no, I mean, yeah, I like ebooks. I like ebooks. I like I know how to clean up an ebook if something's wrong with it. That's the other important thing.
Mhm.
I like this channel. I like to be independent. I like to be able to do the things that for this job. I like to do them by myself if I can.
Yeah. And that's a hard thing to do with audiobooks too, right? DIY on audiobooks is a really meticulous.
Mhm.
I mean, you're a meticulous guy, and you had a podcast, and you're audio centric. You like to make sure that all your audio is good and clean and everything like that. I mean, I know that about you, but still, audiobooks is a whole other level, right?
Exactly. It's a completely different amount of commitment, and quality is actually top notch. And then there's also the other elements that you've talked about. Again, you've talked about these recent years anyway, about the whole Audible gate, that nastiness with Amazon and the audiobook. Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
too much. I mean, there's too many risks there with a hugely expensive product, whether it's just me making it or somebody else and I'm paying them, then that product gets basically fucked. I'm really not sure about that. That sounds like a bad investment at that point. Whereas at
yeah,
least the ebooks, I know how it works. I
yeah,
know that I'm going to get paid if somebody buys one. That's especially nice, actually, now that I'm wide and I don't have anything in Kindle Unlimited. I'm not with them just taking, just not paying me for something somebody read. And I know to read a Kindle book, right? Because I do most of my reading on a Kindle app. I don't necessarily, it doesn't always get read, which is a little obnoxious because they have achievements and stuff like that.
yeah.
So the gamification is kind of run on the Kindle app, but then they don't always register when I actually read something. So I don't do that part of the app. But at least it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
At least when you're not being paid by the page.
Are you finding success outside of Amazon?
I've gotten quite a few downloads. I mean, mostly with the free books. I've gotten quite a few books moved on not a lot, but some on
Mhm,
Apple, some on Barnes and Noble or Kobo. It's enough that it's not nothing.
mhm.
And also just being permanently free with Iron Dragon Book 1 and with for the Forgotten Mask, which is Twisted Gods book, has been very helpful. Both those books, especially Twisted Gods, which is a bit older, that
Yeah,
I decided to make it free and it's already moving copies. I think that's pretty good. And across all the platforms that I've seen, put it on. Can't
yeah,
complain.
yeah. Mike Faria, this is Mike Faria saying hello. Hi, Mike. Nice to see you. And then he says he finds it hard to listen to audiobooks too. It depends on the narrator as well. Sometimes it's unbearable.
Yeah. There's this
Yeah,
one book, I can't name names, but I mean, I really enjoy Cameron Hurley's work, and sometimes I can't take the narrators for audiobooks. Like I've tried, and and then I just ended up reading the ebook and enjoying it. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, there is something about leaving it to your own imagination a little bit, and then when you hear something that doesn't just sound right, it kind of throws you off a little bit.
Right. That's actually another really important detail about any book, that either not audiobook, but either any book you read, so ebook or print book, I find that they're much more toy if you can see them. Even though I love audio as a medium, I really do think there's something. I mean, I learned to read. I didn't learn to read by listening to people read. I guess probably I did. I don't remember, but it's been a long time since that happened. Let me get that straight. No, my point is, when I read, I skip around on the page. You can't do that with an audiobook. It's narrow. It's a single. Whereas I can bounce back and forth up and down a page, and then I eventually read the whole thing. But I'm really audiobooks are tough. Like I've been trying to listen to this Stephen King audiobook for like 7 years. And I still haven't finished it because it's so tense most of the time. It's just maybe someday.
With the way you read, I would imagine that something would have to grab your attention right away. Then is that how you feel? How deep into a book will you go before you DNF it?
Oh, it won't be long. I mean, it depends. I mean, it really depends. There's different grades, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, most books I'm gonna finish it, and I know I'm not going to finish it. It's the first chapter at the very latest. We'll be like, oh, okay, this is done. There are many books that are, there are books that can make me literally pass out and faint before they make me quit reading them. That's an actual example from when I was in college. It's been a while. But I was reading a book by an author who probably should not be named. He's not there. No, and it was such a visceral scene. This one scene was so visceral, and I fainted. Luckily, I was reading on my bed, so it wasn't a huge deal. But it was just like that gross. And then it went into and I started thinking about it, and I couldn't stop imagining how nasty that image was. Out like a light. I'm a kind of sensitive dude.
That's funny. I mean, only one.
But I finished that book.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that much.
Nice. Yeah.
Eventually. Yeah.
Yeah. There's only been one book for me that's ever done that, and it's Misery. And the moment that she, tackles his ankles and just destroys them.
Man.
I had to put that down for a few. I had to go, okay, that's a little much. but I did finish it.
I didn't make it that far. I did DNF Misery. I did that because it was too visceral when she started burning the manuscript on the stove. I'm like, that's just cruel. Oh my gosh, it's gonna get worse, isn't it? I'm like, I don't know if I can take worse than this. That's just how the kind of nerd I was. Like, that's one copy of this guy's book. You're destroying it. No. Anyway.
Mike says I'm a slow reader.
Yeah.
My comprehension is pretty high. It's annoying for me though because it takes me a long time and dedication to put through most reads. I'm with you, Mike. That's me too.
Yeah, it's funny because when I read a book, I often go faster and faster the further I get into it. It's just kind of funny.
Me too.
But I think there might be something to that because I learn to read the book. I learn what the book's going to be like, and then I can kind of breeze through it until by the end of a book. Like, I mean, my favorite, one of my favorite motivational authors, not one of my favorite authors, Dan Brown. When I'd read one of his books as a kid. And I'm a huge fan of Dan Brown in that, I mean, he's the one who motivated me to write because I'm like, surely I can do better than this guy. No, but his books do work on a lot of levels.
Yeah.
And they would pull me through, and then I'd be reading them so fast, and I'm like, wow, I got everything, but I don't remember any of the words. And that really did help me enjoy them a little more. It's kind of a backhanded compliment, but hey, I mean, whatever. Yeah. All the money.
It's like saying, that explosion in that Transformers movie got me going, but I don't remember a damn thing about the plot at all. Thanks, Michael Bay.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well done, I guess. You got what you wanted, I think. Wasn't really what I was looking for. But
So,
yeah. No, I mean, I do think that oh, go on, sorry.
oh no, go ahead. Keep going.
I was just gonna say, I think that the battle scenes in particular can be they can drag if they're too long. I've really changed to be on this a lot lately because detailed battle scenes are fun, but they have the same details or it doesn't matter, and it's frustrating to read. Actually, at least for me. I mean, I want things to change. My attention is put on something in the fight. I want it to make a difference, of some kind. And that's for the most maybe why I tend to write short nowadays. Like most parts of fiction, I'm like, yeah, I don't need to see the status quo all the time.
Mm. And he just says no one remembers the plot of a Transformers movie.
I certainly don't. I saw a few of them, a couple of them when I was younger.
So, okay,
One
so
of them
that being
involved the
said,
pyramid being blown up. I don't know.
yeah. Ugh.
Okay, never mind. Never mind.
Okay, so that being said about the way you read, are you conscious of that with your writing? Are you somebody who likes to pack a lot of stuff at the beginning or really works hard on the beginning of your writing so that you are engaging the reader? Is that something very important to you?
Well, I definitely have more practice beginnings than endings, but I also really do like to set up things in a way that makes sense because I find that's for both me as a writer and for the reader. Because if I set up, I mean, it's the gun stuff, but it's also I'm teaching myself what the story's gonna be about, and therefore it can twist in these ways, and it doesn't have to be as direct as a gun. It can be something as as weird as like, well, this story's gonna be kind of emotional, even though it's with dragons and stuff.
Mhm.
Or this story is about how evil some like these guys going to be, pretty much no matter what it is, that kind of thing. But that if those seeds get later on in the story, then I know I use them later on, and I can use them later on, and I remember to. I mean, it's very rare for me to go back and see it in the details after the fact because I try very hard to start out with to build up where I want to go. And if this tool later on, it makes it faster to read, to write. And I think that would be helpful to the reader too. I actually asked what it is. I'd imagine it helps. Judging by the response I'm getting to, they have the scent. I want to make my story stronger. So
Nice.
people really like that. Oh, it's nice and short, and it's not. It's barely a novel.
Mhm. You broke up a little bit there. Can you repeat what you were saying about what the book was? Because I didn't hear the book name.
Oh, they have the scent. Yeah, the Iron Dragon book one. They have the scent.
Mhm.
It's yeah, it builds up very intense. I mean, into the midpoint of the book. I think I kind of just. I mean, I don't feel like I'm riding downhill in the second half, but
Mhm.
it was definitely more release of tension as the story goes on,
Nice.
and release of information, honestly,
Mhm.
or
It
use of
sounds
information. Geez, I'm going on a bit.
it sounds like
Yeah.
to me that you're at a point right now that you're really enjoying what you're writing for once. I mean, I've known you for a long time, and sometimes you haven't enjoyed what you've been writing. And it sounds like this series is kind of a renewed bit of faith for you.
I'd say that's true. I mean, I don't feel like I'm limited to what I can do with that thing. I mean, a lot of my series, and this is kind of a weird fact, is a lot of my series are built up so novels in them. A lot of them have so many characters that are like, this is a character, at least the name, the concept of the character has been around for 5 or 10 years. immediately, and then off to the races with them. That's something I haven't done very much, and I think it's a better way to do it for me than sitting on the characters for years and years and just like make them become important, and being important isn't useful for writing a story. It doesn't make it fun.
Yeah.
It makes it less fun in some ways because there's tension about is this going to be good enough for this to represent this idea,
Yeah. And I think are the characters you're developing in these stories in the Iron Dragon series right now, are they a little bit more complex too? Are you finding there's a bit more complexity to them?
Absolutely. Especially the two main characters. You can see one of them on the cover of other main characters can be on the cover of book 3, which is coming out soon. Mark my words. I keep saying it's going to be out soon. It's a beast. Compared to book 2 anyway. It's a very good book. I'm really enjoying it. I was thrilled with what I did. But the two main characters that I see, so that I kind of thought were in a position that'd be central to the series, the two main human characters, are kind of like they're not just interesting and more complex on their own. They have a dynamic that I think is more complex than most of my other characters are. Kind of a classic. They're the main character, and then there's his rival or enemy, his opposite number, who is on the other side of the Cold War situation, and she is all, but they also respect each other, and they're also kind of each other's love interests. So there's where this book kind of collides as far as the dynamic of the story, changes.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't necessarily think it was going to be changed that much, but they just kept adding layers to it, and I kept adding layers to them. So I'm like, okay, so what about this and what about that? And there are a few other characters that are really important, but those central too, yeah, I really like them. And I haven't felt this way about a character that I created right off the bat in a long time, maybe ever.
That's cool, man.
Because almost all the time I create new characters for the book as they appear, but I almost never like them that much.
I love that. I love that idea because,
and it honestly doesn't occur to me that. Yeah, go on.
Oh no, go ahead. Keep going.
Oh, it didn't occur to me that this was going to be how it worked, and that these characters were going to be so important. That's all I was going to say. Because it seems like it would be plot driven, but it isn't. It's character driven.
Yeah, and I think loving the characters or loving where they're going in the direction that you're taking them, or the direction they're taking you in a lot of ways, and a lot of times when they're throwing curveballs at you, that kind of is a different way to write, right? And you kind of get a different. There's almost kind of like a weird like dance you do with them at that point.
Absolutely. I mean, there's certain things you can do with them, and there's this style that I find that the characters that I really enjoy. It goes back to the simple thing. I like his toys, right? I like my miniatures and my war games. I like all sorts of stuff. Like these objects, though, and I like to treat a book like a toy, right? I like to treat it like it's a physical thing, even if it is a digital thing. And I like to mess around the order I read stuff and things like that, and use it as something that's just an item of entertainment. Anything else? When I'm writing characters that have a lot of edges and a lot of nooks and crannies, compelling bits, that's where I get to treat them almost like they're just a method for me to entertain myself as I follow them around. And what are they going to do? What can they do? What will they do next? And it's really entertaining. It's really fun.
You've tackled the rapid release before. You've done rapid releasing. You've done paced releases and scheduled releases. But it really feels like in this series you're taking your time. Is that fair to say? Do you feel like that is something that why these books are becoming a little bit more special to you? Why they're also getting more rich is because you are taking your time, or are you someone that really enjoys the rapid release process?
I mean, I thought I would enjoy it more than I did. So I didn't like. I mean, I do like rapid releasing and stuff, but I wasn't very good at it. Let's be honest here. I did most of my rapid releases that made any impact were books that I'd already written a bunch of before, or they were like novels I split up, and those didn't work out that well as far as storytelling. So
Hmm.
most of those are gone. Had to be folded back into their full novel form, just to make them, make sense. And people like them a lot better that way anyway. So that was a big improvement. But no, I think, yeah, I think it's fair to say I'm taking my time more and I'm enjoying the process more, and that's really what my focus is these days, is just enjoying the process, enjoying making the stories, and trying to make them as good as they can be. It occurs to me, like, I mean, I still dictate a lot of the story, but I'm not sure how much longer that's going to be the main form. It might just be a utility that I use every now and then, eventually, because it's so much rougher and it's less fun. So who knows? Maybe it won't last. But who knows? Maybe next time I talk to you, the opposite will have happened. I can't predict where my process goes, especially when now that I have the two options. I think they either need to balance out. Actually, that's really probably what's going to happen. They're going to balance out and I'll do maybe half and half or something like that, time
Mm,
wise investment on the book. Which means that a large part of it would be dictated, but then a large chunk, about a quarter of it would be typed, and
mhm,
that just gives it a little bit of texture to it,
mhm.
and that kind of prose texture. I find it interesting. I'm not sure how many other people would. I think it works well for the stories, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna mention, I was gonna say, uh, finding your process isn't is maybe a little more overrated than people give it thought to, because ultimately you're still creating, right? And creating is the muscle. It's not the process that's the muscle. It's the creation of the process. Yeah, you do learn over time how to write words better. You also learn how to what you
Mhm.
like in writing, and so you create from that perspective. But ultimately just creating is what flexes the muscle, right? And so it feels like for you that your muscles are really being flexed here, and it just, I mean, it just seems like that to me. I don't know if that's how you feel, but so I think finding the process is a little overrated in that respect.
I'd agree with that. I think I've often been fixated on it in the past, and that's been, I mean, if anything, kind of a mistake
Mm,
because, I mean, when you're always trying to find the thing, you're not appreciating what you already have. You're looking for something else.
mm.
I mean, it's like that Fight Club. This is the greatest moment of your life, and you're off somewhere missing it. Yeah, I don't want to miss it, and I'm tired of missing it. Except in this case, I'm not being burned by chemicals, so it's much nicer in this case. I'm having
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, or committing spy espionages or criminal activity, right? At least
Well,
not
I
in
don't do the
real life.
criminal activity when I'm writing.
Yeah.
Oh, did I say that out loud? That's oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, espionage, it's fun. It's a fun gig. And honestly, I think though now that you mention it, I mean those books they started off being heavily influenced by Metal Gear Solid, but they've also got a big James Bond influence at this point
Mhm.
just because I read a few of those novels. And so I wanted to get a little bit. I mean, I'm not trying to make the character's nothing like James Bond. He's
Right.
much nicer, but also much more. He's more like a. I mean, if there's a James Bond, he's like it's the Daniel Craig one, but not really any of them. you know, and I think that's good because I don't want to create an XP or whatever of James Bond. I wasn't trying to do that,
Yeah.
but I definitely got influenced by reading those books, the first few of those, just by just because I mean there's less action than in a video game or even a
Mhm.
James Bond movie, and that's probably the
Mhm.
biggest difference. Because how can you? I mean, I'm not into the all this has to be shooting people thing. That every action movie seems to do these days.
Or in the case of dragons not burning everybody up, right?
Yeah, well, there's some of that. You can't do it all that often, but it's eventually they burn things.
I think it was the
Or
last time. Yeah, I think it was the last time we did this show together. We talked about the empathy of killing characters off and pushing characters. I know we've had this conversation before because uh, uh, is in the process you're in now and the way you're in now, has that evolved for you at all, or is it still, you know what, you got to go, you got to go?
well, now I almost I mean it's definitely still some of that because I mean I've had characters I really liked that I'm like, okay, now you've got to die, and it happens like twice in the first book, so that's a pretty dense with character death book.
Yeah.
You know, it's also like, you know, I've kind of come to the conclusion that a character dying isn't the worst thing that can happen to them. So they can be considered sort of lucky if that happens at some point. You know, I mean, and like actors love their death scenes a lot of the time. Those are famous and stuff in movies. So like, I think it can come across well. You know, I mean, and I honestly am a big fan of Matt Wallace, the author Matt
Mhm.
Wallace, and he has this concept. His concept about death, writing death scenes, has really stuck with me, especially because one of my favorite things of his was the Slinger Saga, which is like the series of 5
Mhm.
novellas that he made, in which, spoiler alert, most of the characters get a death scene. Anyway, but it's because the death. But what he said was that the death scene is another way to show the character, which is kind of an interesting way to see it because now they're gone. But on the other hand, what else is there to say? I mean, you can't. You don't know. At least if they're facing their death and they're always rescued, you don't get the entire thing. You only
Mhm.
get the idea of that what they might do if they thought they were going to die, and when they're actually dying, or you know, when however how other characters react to their deaths, it all builds around itself. You know, it's another network of complex interactions.
Mhm.
Pretty interesting to me.
Do you feel a
But I
responsibility?
also don't see. I mean, I
Okay.
do enjoy my characters, but you know, sometimes death is part of the character.
Do you feel responsibility for the characters you like to give them a more memorable death scene?
Did give them what?
A more memorable death scene? Do you the characters you like, do you like to give
Yes,
them a
yes,
more
I do.
memorable one?
I try to, though sometimes actually, I mean, honestly, some of the characters they get fairly ignominious deaths, even though I like them a lot. That's actually happened. It happened in Demon Scroll. It happened in Iron Dragon a couple of times. Like there's these characters that I'm like, yeah, this character's so fun, or this character could be so cool, and then I just like, no, I'm gonna kill this character now. And no, it's not like that. I said it wrong. I don't think I'm killing the character, but like, oh, somebody else is going to get them now, and it's going to be important. So I'm not going to try to save them. Does that make sense? It's you
Yeah.
know, it's. I'm not a. I don't see the author as a murderer. You know, I don't think that's part of because for one thing, I'm not in the book. I don't do any of the killings. I know that sounds like a Charles Manson thing to say, but it's not. It's I swear. I just I just know that there's other people in there who can do it, and or there's things that are going to kill him. You know, I mean, like
Mhm.
I don't want to spoil anything, but in They Have the Scent, one of the main characters dies in a way that's almost like, I mean, yeah, he takes some punishment first, but it's almost like, wow, I can't believe that's what did him in at the end. You don't even see it happen really, and yet I think it's quite satisfying, honest.
Are those, are are those easier to write or they're harder to write for you? Oh, I think he froze totally there.
All right, I'm back.
Alright.
Sorry about that.
No
The
worries.
internet hiccups.
No problem. I was asking if the ignominious deaths or the more complex ones, are those easier to write or harder to write for you?
Oh, that's interesting. I feel like I do tend toward the actual low key death scene, and I
Mm.
find that's easier probably because there's so much that has to weigh on a scene where it's like, this is it. This is the really dead scene. you know, to me, that's a lot harder to write than a scene where it's happens so fast and it doesn't. It feels right. It feels real in that way, but it also is a lot hard. It's harder for the characters to process, but it's also easier for me to process. It works out for a bunch of reasons. Not to get too deep into my own instinct here, but I mean, they just disappear. That's kind of how it feels. They disappear and they leave people sad, which is, a part of the story I do enjoy writing. I do like to get into that.
You're writing a book that has a little bit more romance than we tend to note about a Tim Niederriter book, or a series that I should say, not a book, but a series. Is that
Yeah.
harder to write for you than the death stuff?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I really enjoy the romance stuff. I've been jonesing to get to it forever. I've wanted to write a romantic subplot like this since the beginning of
Nice.
my writing career, and I think I'm finally doing it. So good for me. I enjoy it, and I think I've been waiting to do this for so long that it feels like it's finally time. It's good, and having the characters have a more complex relationship than just they fall in love and they're allies is very helpful. Makes it a lot
Mm,
easier, honestly, than some of the books where it's like more straightforward, where it's like these partners in whatever they're doing are also going to fall in love with each other. That to me is good. It's fun, but it's tougher to write, if you can believe it, than a story where they're at each other's throats every now and then, at the very
no,
least.
I do believe it. Yeah, yeah, I believe that wholeheartedly.
And there's some
Uh,
natural conflict there, right? Like, how am I
yeah.
supposed to fall in love with my arch enemy or this agent of my arch enemy?
Well, love is such a complicated emotion for us personally, anyway, right? It's something that we feel deeply, and sometimes it blinds us. Sometimes it messes with us a little
Yeah.
bit, and so to write that's going deep into a deep place.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm not experienced with successful loving relationships. I'm experienced with some unsuccessful ones. So, and some ones that made me very uncomfortable. So that's maybe
Yeah.
why I think drawing on the well of things is actually helping me out here too. Because
Mm.
there's much more of an enemy frenemy relationship or whatever they say these days. Whatever those kids say, get off my lawn. Uh, you know, they there's much more of that going on in this series. And again, I think it makes it more dynamic, makes it more interesting to write because they're not always hanging out for what. That's actually one thing that makes it a lot easier too. They're not always in the same scenes, but
Mm.
they think about each other all the time. That to me is really nice. It makes a lot of impact to the story, and it makes it more interesting to me.
Mm. All right, we're gonna do the questionnaire
And
here
then
in
you
a
can build
minute.
up to the scenes where they clash. Yeah, sure. Go on.
So we're gonna do the questionnaire here in a minute, but give everybody before we do that, give everybody a sense of what Iron Dragon's about. What is the series truly about? Give us kind of like a scope of what people can expect when they pick up the first book, which again is free, everybody. So go and get this book and read it because it's free and it's a small book, so you'll be able to rip right through it, hopefully, and then that'll entice you to get the second one, obviously. But tell everybody a little bit about the series as a whole. What is it about, and give us kind of a scope of it.
So this series is about the return of dragons to a land where they've been made extinct. They were wiped out before humanity ever arose on this planet by one of their oldest enemies, the dragon's oldest enemies, not humanity's. And they're not the same thing. Humanity is not the enemy in this setting. But the dragons have been wiped out on this planet. Humans have always used the derivatives of dragon technology and magic to build up their civilizations on this world. And now they're getting to the point where they're reviving dragons. They're making artificial dragons, and eventually, probably not a big spoiler, dragons will be back in force, most likely. There'll be many dragons. But for starters, we just have a couple. And lots of scary monsters that want to get rid of them, as well as people who want to control them.
Nice.
Do you think that's a good enough scope there? I think it is. Also, vast maturation of characters. There's lots of changes to the characters as the series goes on. It'll take place over a large span of time, relatively speaking. Years and years. I think the first 3 books take place over about a year, but that's 100,000 words, right? That's not very many words. And so, if you think about it, I'm jumping around a bit, but as the series progresses, it'll probably be bigger time jumps every now and then, and we'll see more of how the world changes as dragons return.
Are you going to flash back to any point before that aspect? Or are you going to just keep on the timeline you're on?
I'll probably go primarily forward. I could see going back because there are some elements, and honestly, I have done. This is another one that's not a spoiler, but there's actually another book in this setting already, and it's called, though it's set about the same time period as they have Descent. It's called 10 Liars, and that's out as well. That's available wherever fine books can be sold, and it's that one's a banger, if I do say so myself. But it's a different kind of story in the same kind of world, and it doesn't actually involve dragons. Sorry.
Nice.
Just bonded weapons and gunslingers and stuff. Yeah.
Nice. All right, sir. So we're about to do the questionnaire invented by the great Bernard Pivot, and then perfected by Mr. James Lipton on Inside the Actor Studio, and now adapted by me. So, Tim Niederriter, what is your favorite word to write?
My favorite word to write is aspergillum. No, is that glib? I don't know.
No, that's fine. It's what you like.
No, aspergillum, definitely.
What is your least favorite word to write?
Has to be cocked. It's not a good word. Don't want to see it.
Nice. All right. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Oh, beautiful things. Beautiful. Anything awe-inspiring or pretty. Basically, that I'm all over that stuff. It really powers my engine.
Nice. So, what turns you off?
That's a tough question. Actually, way tougher than the first one. So, definitely, it's got to be. I mean, I might almost say, and this is probably too easy, but I think things that bore me are banal stuff, or stuff that's depressing in the sense of, like, I mean, to give you an example, and this is going to be controversial, but I love controversy. Let's stir the pot. The beginning of Breaking Bad, don't like that very much. Not the very beginning. The very beginning is great. The very first scene, great. But then the first episode, oof, that's a downer. Because he's just got this ingrate. His family this family that he's working for is not like an ideal family. He doesn't like them as much as he probably should. They don't like him that much. And there is motivation. Come on. That to me is like, it makes sense, but it's also rough. It's a tough deal for me.
Nice. I agree with you. I think you have to get past the first like 3 or 4 episodes of that series to get to what is really amazing and stellar about it.
Okay.
What is your favorite curse word?
I'm just gonna be average here. I'm gonna say fuck. That's my favorite curse word.
Nice. What noise or sound do you love?
Well, okay. This takes a little explanation, but I do enjoy some syllables that other people consider nonsense, especially when combined. I have kind of a pseudo catchphrase that I developed. I didn't develop it on purpose. I just kind of said it a lot back in college when I was sleep deprived, and it is like this: Wumba do. That's it. Wumba do. And you usually point up into the air when you say it. It's kind of an expression. I mean, I have written a language based on Wumba do. I have a language of people that talk like that all the time in one of my fantasy settings, but it's not yet published, so who knows if it ever will be. But that's my favorite set of sounds that go together.
So what sound or noise do you dislike?
Definitely the high pitched ones, the I, E, screeches.
Nice. Okay, what character of yours would have their face on their own money?
Ooh, okay. I just wrote this guy recently. I mean, just added. He's been in my head for a while, but his name is. It's a fantasy setting, right? His name is Iwadi Vorse, and he's a rich dude. He's a rich business guy who has a lot of business in the espionage world. He's in the Iron Dragon series, and he's also real arrogant. So I think he'd have his money. His face might be on the money at some point.
Nice.
Yeah.
What
that could
artistry...
happen. That could happen in the books.
Nice. What other artistry would you love to try?
Okay, something I don't already do because I build models and stuff, but I'd like to. Honestly, I mean, I'm thinking painting on a canvas might be fun to try at some point. I've never done it.
Nice.
At least not in a long ass time. I don't remember ever doing it. Not in school or anything.
Nice. So which artistry will you never try?
Well, probably any of the performance arts. I'm not going to be a living statue, right? I'd be too talkative. But most stage acting, I couldn't handle. Yeah, there you go.
All right. So, if heaven exists or whatever belief you have in an afterlife exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive in His presence, or in their presence, I should say?
In their presence, yeah. I mean, welcome home wouldn't be bad. I'd be okay with that. Yeah, welcome home. Here's a lemonade. Chill out on the porch.
Well, Tim, welcome home.
That's pretty much what I do already.
Yes. Welcome home. You know, you always have a home here at Go Indie now. I'm so glad that we got this opportunity to talk about what I think is a real renaissance for you in this series, and I'm really excited to talk to you more about it in the future. I'm excited to hear that there's more books coming for it, and I hope it continues for you in this way and moves forward. It was a wonderful time to talk to you. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me and doing this.
Oh, well, thank you so much, sir. Your show's great. More people should watch it, and I hope they will. I hope. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Where can people find you? If they want to go get this, where can they get the first book?
Definitely, you can get the first book at. Oh, geez, I wish I could remember the book link or link, but no, definitely go to Amazon or any of your fine ebook retailers and you search Tim Niederriter. It should come up. Honestly, it's my most popular book right now because it's free. People love it. Or search. They have the scent Tim Niederriter. You should find it. And just type that into any search engine. I guarantee it will pop up.
Awesome.
And then my website is timneedawriter.com. Sorry, way ahead of you. My website is timneedawriter.com, and it's spelled like the words. So my name, Need, N-E-E-D, a writer.com.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And remember that it's always time to go indie now. And we'll see you next time on 21 Grams. Bye, everybody.